Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us tonight for a Daily Acts informational session on the Leadership Institute for Just and Resilient Communities. We're so glad you're here. Tonight is going to be a conversation about our program, so feel free to ask questions along the way, either by jumping in or sending it as a chat. Our agenda for the next hour is to introduce you to Daily Acts, provide an overview of the Leadership Institute history, course goals, framework, and class flow, share a day in the life of a leadership participant, and hear testimonials from current participants. We'll have plenty of time for questions and answers, so please be sure to think about what you want to know more about. Any questions before we get started? Great. So Daily Acts is a holistic educational nonprofit who takes a heart-centered approach towards inspiring transformative actions that create connected, equitable, and climate-resilient communities. We believe in the power of our daily actions to reconnect people to self, community, and place, which helps to heal our society and planet. Daily Act's holistic approach starts in the soil and swells into culture and policy change. With over 100 talks, tours, and trainings a year, we implement 3 interwoven strategies for systems change. First, we spread solutions and models that equip people with the means and motivation to grow food, medicine, habitat, and community while conserving resources. And because change happens through mindful collaboration, we also invest in strengthening community leadership, which includes our Leadership Institute for Just and Resilient Communities, as well as our Youth Climate Leaders and Environmental Health Network. We'll be back to Leadership Institute in a moment. These efforts consolidate into our third strategy of building public and political will by mobilizing our community's power towards environmental and climate justice policies. Over the last 18 years, Daily Acts has helped mobilize over 80,000 resilience-building actions, run over 1,400 programs, and installed dozens of demonstration gardens. The Leadership Institute, previously known as the Leadership Institute for Ecology and the Economy, transitioned to Daily Acts 3 years ago. Established in 2000 with over 500 graduates, myself included, over 500 graduates have gone through the program in the last 20 years, coming from business, government, nonprofit, and youth perspectives. Some of our fellows include Assemblymember Jim Wood, prior Assemblymember Michael Allen, Supervisor Gorin, local council members, the head of the water agency, and businesses like Jackson Family Wines, Amy's Kitchen, and Guayaki. Here you'll see a young Cordell Stillman from Sonoma Clean Power, as well as our work with the Sustainable Enterprise Conference, which the Leadership Institute helped launch. When this organization transitioned to Daily Acts in 2017, it got a new name and a deeper commitment to equity, while building off and expanding on the strong foundation already established. So one of the biggest shifts in our curriculum that came with the transition to Daily Acts was the addition of a leadership from the inside out framework. This framework builds on the shoulders of hundreds of thought leaders in the personal development and leadership skills building space. While our approach is inspired by many, many leaders, these trainings and strategists listed on the slide are the foundation for our approach, as well as the tools, tips, and skills building that we integrate into the program. I encourage you to check them out to be equally inspired. Our framework moves through 3 pillars, which you can see in the graphic on the slide. We start with personal leadership to clarify our purpose and vision and create our leadership compass. We then move into the public realm of being in action through civic engagement. This values and action leadership builds towards collective power, where we practice skills for collaboration, partnership, and relationship building, as well as gaining a systems perspective on issues we care about. So to dive a little bit deeper into each pillar, our first pillar, like I mentioned, is personal leadership. Here we spend time on our purpose, vision, values, and operating principles, so that we can be clear on who we are, where we come from, and how we want to show up as leaders in our community. To model what this looks like, the values for our program are equity, courage, humility, and consent. I also want to share an example of how my personal leadership compass influences how I show up as a leader in how I introduce myself tonight. So to introduce myself, My name is Kerry Fugett. I'm the Leadership Institute Program Manager and a Fellow of the Institute Class of 2017. To fully introduce myself, I'm white, a millennial, female identifying, cisgender, and middle-class Petaluma resident raised in Sebastopol. For me, this program has given me space and community with whom to reflect on how these many identities impact my life experiences, my relationships, and how I use my privilege to model and create a just and resilient future through my daily actions. My core values are respect, compassion, and dignity for myself and all others. One of my core principles, operating principles, is to walk my talk, which helps me to stay in integrity with my values. I stand on the shoulders of my Irish, Scottish, and German ancestors and passionately believe in the power each of us hold to create a world that regenerates people and planet. So this is an example of my inner clarity in action. This self-awareness has impacted me in how I show up in collaborative and diverse spaces. It's given me courage to speak up when that's needed, as well as the humility to listen. I have actually introduced myself in community coalition meetings with business leaders, starting with my values instead of my title. Another core element of our personal leadership is building our emotional intelligence, which includes self-awareness, self-management, and social awareness. One practice we integrate that helps build our skills in this area is the simple action of slowing down, focusing on our breath, and bringing our awareness to our body. The repeated practice of something called soft belly breathing is one example of a number of mind-body medicine practices we weave into our work as tools for personal resilience in turbulent times. So, with the goal of showing and not telling, I want to invite us all to actually take a few minutes to practice this tool, because especially in the turbulent times we're in, it can be very helpful. So we're actually going to take a moment together to ground, and I invite you to put your feet on the ground, and if you feel safe to do so, please close or lower your eyes. We're going to take a moment to breathe together and bring our awareness to this moment. I invite you to bring your attention to your breath and someone or something you are grateful for. And to hold this gratitude through a deep breath in and a slow breath out. To conspire literally means to breathe together. So when we come together and take time to bring awareness to our breath, we are literally conspiring towards a better future. So as you keep your attention on your breath, I invite you to think about what drew you here today to the program and what drives you to grow yourself as a leader. Take a moment to sit with your intentions for this work. Now you can slowly open your eyes. Feel free, if you'd like, to rub your hands together, shake it out. So we start each class with a grounding exercise like this as a way to weave mind-body medicine practices into our day and habits. These practices help us deepen our ability to forge meaningful connections, which is a critical leadership skill as you dive into the complexity of addressing intersectional issues. So I'd love to do now is invite anybody who would like to share to unmute yourself and share what brings you here tonight and draws you to this training.
Hi, my name is Jorge, and what brought me to this training is my wife is currently in the program, Stephanie, and my cousin Berenice has also been in the program, and they both speak very highly of it. So they suggested I look into it, and that's why I'm here. I just want to, I want to see the benefits that they received. I want to go through that training as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jorge. We're so glad you're here. Damien.
So my name is Damien, and I've been pretty immersed in a lot of the sustainability world for a long time. But I am really excited about this program that's bringing together a really strong focus on equity issues. I've been interested in equity issues for a long time, but I haven't really done a deep dive into that. And I'm excited to see sort of how that comes together with some of the sustainability pieces. My wife is actually a graduate of the program as well. She did, I think she may have been in your class, Kerry. Maggie Fleming?
I think that was from my class, but I know her name.
Okay. And also I'm really excited to sort of develop more of the leadership capacities and really study with other people and learn more about leadership and practice leadership, as well as just sort of being in a bigger circle. Like in some ways, my circle is rather small at the moment, and I'm really excited to network with different people and from other, local people in Sonoma County and get some different perspectives and connections and build relationships.
Awesome. You're in the right place. Thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Would anybody else like to share? All right. Well, if you feel like sharing later, feel free to put anything in the chat as well. And thank you so much, Jorge and Damien, for giving a little insight into what came up. So that's our first pillar of the program, personal leadership. We're now going to take a look at the other two pillars through the lens of a day in the life of a leadership class. So over the course of 9 classes from September to June, we moved to different venues across the county to hear from inspiring speakers around topics such as food systems, water supplies, affordable housing, access and opportunity, health, education, climate change, and waste management, just to name a few. And we discuss how all of these intersect as well. Here in the photos, you'll see we have talks, tours, and panel discussions. We go to the Water Treatment Center, La Luz, Occidental Arts and Ecology Center, Pepperwood Preserve, La Plaza, and also venues such as Sonoma County Office of Education, the Hannah Institute, Singing Frogs Farm, Burbank Housing, and more. And speakers share insights into the history of our county, current issues, and opportunities to be civically engaged to promote and protect our publicly shared values. So we bring in trainers as well, like Movement Generation, who introduces systems thinking perspective and a framework called the Just Transition. These mornings provide a snapshot, or we joke, an appetizer platter, as we look at a very wide range of issues and how they show up locally. Our third pillar is collective power, and this is where we spend our afternoons as well as in the personal leadership space. And we connect with our peers to discuss the speakers in the morning, the readings and homework, build leadership skills, and have project time. This pillar is based on the recognition that we can't make change that we need to do alone, and that we need to do it in collaboration, and that through collaboration we can build collective power. In this pillar, we learn tools such as deep listening, systems thinking, habit hacking, cycles of reflection, and conversations for action. We practice skills to see the system as a whole and the relationship between the parts. And what this can look like is small and large group discussion, personal reflections, and yes, drawing and coloring. As Margaret Wheatley advises, this work and our leadership program is really about relationships. And this is where change happens. Our relationship with ourselves, with others, with our community, and with the ecosystems around us. The depth of relationship between individuals and the systems determines the strength of a system. So if we want to create new ways of living that don't extract our wealth, labor, and resources, and instead regenerate health, purpose, and ecosystems, we're going to need a lot of strong relationships. And this portion of the day gives us space to get to know each other, support each other, and grow our leadership toolkit and courage to be in action. This is also in the afternoon where our project teams get to work together. The project design is framed around the principle that equity is a process and a goal, so that there's focus on how your project is moved forward in addition to what you want to do. We really strongly encourage participants to not jump straight to solutions until they've explored and observed the problem. And we recognize that action is needed now, just not with an urgency mindset. In this way, the project leans into the inherent leadership tension of needing to act now while ensuring that how we act is in integrity with our values and purpose. So while we would love there to be an outcome of your project, this can't come at the expense of steamrolling forward with your perfect solution created without any community input. So our priority is to bring awareness to how we approach and design solving problems together as leaders. Here's an example from last year's leadership team, Growing Resilient Neighborhoods, which organized around a class member who lost her home in Coffee Park. Here, a partnership with Conservation Corps, Habitat for Humanity, and Coffee Strong spurred a free giveaway of over 1,000 drought-tolerant plants to folks rebuilding from the Tubbs fire, while promoting resources for larger culture change away from thirsty lawns to low-water, habitat-creating, and food-growing gardens. So now, I'd like to stop talking and hand it over to our amazing participants, Stephanie Minieri and Sierra Downey from this current year, to give a little bit more real-life examples of how this program has impacted them and this year. So I'm going to stop sharing and let them take it over.
Well, hi everyone. My name is Stephanie, and I'm really excited to be here with you all and to just share a little bit about my experience with the Daily Acts Institute. So I was nominated to be a part of this program a while back, and at the time I really felt like I didn't have time. I was in school and working and doing a lot of things. And so it took me actually, I had known about the Institute for a while before I finally came and decided to look a little bit more into it and apply. And at the end of the day, I'm really glad that I did. And currently I am in a cohort, and more specifically in my project team. I get to work and spend a lot of time with Sierra. And it's been a really, really great experience. So I'm the type of person who tends to find herself taking on a lot of responsibilities and a lot of different roles and a lot of the different things that I do. So I work for Latino Service Providers, a local nonprofit, and I also serve on the Santa Rosa City Schools Board of Education. And I like to work with people, so I'm always finding myself in different spaces, trying to do what I can to help build a more just and resilient community. So I have always kind of felt, or I guess prior to this to joining the Institute, I felt, or I had a feeling of needing a community, not really, I have a sense of community, which is really amazing, and I recognize that is a huge privilege that I have. But I really needed a community of people who I could rely on, that I could talk to about, a lot of the issues that we see in our community, a lot of these really intersectional things. Someone mentioned, Damien, I think you mentioned equity. That's kind of been, a buzzword. And I really wanted to understand that more. I think I maybe was coming from a similar place as you. And so I felt like I found that in the Institute, which is just absolutely amazing. something that's really unique about the project group that I work in with Sierra is that we have 4 people working on different projects, even though our goal or our objective is the same. And our objective is to build community power. And so we all have different projects that we were working on prior to all of the COVID crises. And it was really unique to see how listening and how really taking the time to slow down and take all of these different lessons that we've learned through the Institute, how that changes and really it impacts the framework and the perspective through which you see your work. And so I think a lot of us probably started our projects and the Institute kind of seeing things one way or having a certain understanding of the way things work in our communities or in our world, and ending the Institute with, a completely different worldview. So I think that is something that is really unique. And part of that, I really do believe, is also Kerry's leadership in the program. I think that, I was able to, we had one of the months or one of the training topics was education, and looking at education and looking at the ways in which that system is flawed and the impacts that's had in our different communities today. How is that showing up today? And so I was able to work with Kerry, rather she invited me to work with her to build a panel and to build a framework around that day. And that was absolutely amazing. And I think that that's a huge testament to Kerry's leadership and how much she really embodies and walks the, leadership and also walks her talk, or yes, walks her talk. Yes, I always get those confused. So I also, want to say that because I've also been a part of other programs or been in other environments that doesn't have that kind of response to the people in the program or, the work that's being done. And I think that is also unique to Daily Acts, that kind of, if we're talking about personal leadership, if we're talking about building community power, that also has to be, the values of the program and the way that the program is ran. And I think that it definitely is. And it's really special to Daily Acts. And I have friends and other people that have gone through the program that I know who also speak very highly of it. So I'm just really glad that now I'm a part of this larger network of people that have gone through, similar training. And we can talk about these things, and, we have language around the issues that we're seeing in our communities, and we can work together to try to address some of those. So that was probably more than 3 minutes. I'm sorry, Kerry.
Oh, it's all good. We're adaptable. Emergent leadership. That was beautiful. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for sharing your experience. Sierra.
Stephanie, thank you so much for your beautiful words. And thank you so much for the memories that I was bringing up. I really appreciated that. So today I was thinking to myself, how can I impress upon these people what an incredible difference that this Leadership Institute has made in my life in just, a matter of months. And I was desperately trying to find the words. And so I thought, well, I already have them. So I went into my old journals and I brought out an entry from about a year ago. Actually, May 7th, almost a year ago. And so I'm just going to read you kind of where my mind was at about a year ago before I had applied, kind of where this Sierra was. And then I'm going to contrast that with my very last entry that I made a couple of days ago. So I'm choosing to be pretty vulnerable with you. I'm a little bit nervous, but I think it'll be okay. All right. So put yourself in the mindset of an incredibly depressed, connectionless, disconnected 25-year-old who moved back to her hometown, but didn't know anyone, didn't know any programs or communities or organizations, kind of just floating and trying to pay bills and not really feeling like that was cutting it. Okay, so that's where we're at right now. It's an ache that sits on your cheekbones and digs its heels into your eye sockets. this rootlessness. Today was a misty redwood and dewy fern morning. I wanted nothing more than to be walking up amongst the blackberry bushes and ancient groves of Humboldt. The craving washed over me like a tidal wave the second my white picket fence gate clicked behind me. I am too stuck in the day-to-day routine of this place. I fear that it is limiting my vision. I feel hemmed in by the ghosts of Sierra's past here. I think I should really be pushing myself to apply to more programs, opportunities, fellowships. There must be more, even to this expletive office job life, than going on walks by myself and paying bills that I can't even afford. I'm gonna go out on a branch and apply to a local leadership fellowship that I desperately would love to participate in, but don't feel confident that I have the qualifications to make me a strong enough candidate for. I'm gonna go for it anyway. That was a year ago. And then I was at this webinar last week or a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about our vision for the world. And after all of these months of just transformational work on myself, really not to change anything about me, but to draw out the tools and the knowledge and the skills that were already there. They just, you know, there were seeds that really needed some nutrients. And so after doing a lot of this work, this was what I just like typed out when we were talking about vision. And then I looked at it, I'm like, damn girl, you would not have written that a year ago. I dream of a world steeped in and strengthened by biocultural diversity. A world where the definition of leaders and followers does not depend on age or wealth status, race or gender or ability or any other box, but one in which every being feels respected, cherished, and called into collective leadership as a vital part of the community. And I'm just so incredibly grateful to the opportunities that I had throughout the leadership program to meet the people that I have, to learn about the local issues that I have in changing this world perspective. I am completely a different person than I would have been had I not had this opportunity. And I am just so vastly grateful for being able to do the work on myself so that I can show up in the best way possible in the movement spaces that I work in and the communities that I am now a part of. And so when I started the Leadership Institute, it was kind of the same time I started with Sunrise Movement, which in the beginning had literally 3 people. We didn't know what the heck we were doing. And now we've grown to, I actually don't even know how many people we have because it's so many. But we do incredible work together, such as the Earth Day live stream that we did a few weeks back, where we invited the community organizations that we work with to come into this space and like present whatever you want to that you feel is giving to the Sonoma County community. And it was just kind of a magical experience to see how much growth had happened and how much connections had been made, and to see our community like really thrive because of it. So basically, if you have the chance to do something as magical as this experience, this Leadership Institute, I mean, please take it. So I hope that that's good enough to convince you to do this. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. There's no other words. Yeah, feel free to ask me any questions.
You're both amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, Sierra and Stephanie. It's really special for me too to hear from you about your experiences, because I don't get that very often. So that was wonderful. Thank you. So is my screen sharing now? Okay, cool. Just want to make sure. So this is a group photo at Occidental Arts and Ecology Center 2 of our current class, and amazing rock stars. So I just have one more slide and then we can open it up for question and answers. And this is really what happens towards the end of the program and our graduation. This is last year's class graduating, where we come together and we do our project presentations and celebrate. And this year that's going to look different, obviously, but we have such an incredible class who's really embraced the idea of emergent leadership, which they have done more than anyone, which as the fires in November hit us and now the pandemic, everybody's been very flexible. But we will be coming together to graduate in person when allowed. And then as a fellow, we invite you to gather for seasonal festivities, including the Leadership Holiday Party. And are actually looking at online spaces too for the time being to hold space and continue to support each other in this work. This year, as I mentioned, we've had to adapt to the COVID pandemic, and the last 2 classes have been transitioned to an online learning environment, complete with virtual tours. We still do everything we can to get some awesome tours of inspiring urban permaculture. And our graduation will be in the fall. We'll be doing project presentations remotely. We are aware that COVID-19 may impact our program in September and are ready to shift as needed to online classes until the moment we're able to meet in person, because that's definitely our commitment. We feel at this moment, with the pandemic acting as a global wake-up call for how unsustainable our systems have been, that it feels even more important than ever to support passionate leaders like you in helping to lead us towards a more just and resilient future. So however that looks, we'll make sure it happens and we're able to get together and as soon as possible have that be in person. So I want to thank each and every one of you for wanting to step up at this transformative moment in our world, because it is a time like no other. So I would like to close before question and answer with one of my favorite quotes from Ella Baker, an incredible movement organizer and social justice leader, that this may only be a dream of mine, but I think it can be made real. So I invite anybody to unmute yourself and ask questions, or feel free to type it in the chat box as well.
I've got a question.
Great.
I'm curious to hear a little more about the projects you guys undertake throughout the program, and you know, how are these conceived, and where do they go, and that kind of thing.
Well, I'll see if Sierra or Stephanie want to answer any of that. I can speak it from I'll give you guys a moment to think. But the project is always an emergent process and looks different every single year and looks different every single group. As Sierra and Stephanie mentioned, theirs is unique in that they're doing different things but sharing a same purpose and process. So we are as adaptable as needed to be to who is in the group. Some people come to the program with a very clear goal of what they want to work on, and some people have a very clear passion that they want to work on something but don't know what that is, and we love both of those. And so sometimes a particular participant will kind of form a group around their project, like the Coffee Strong project 2 years ago, because Pam had lost her home and was committed. That was the project she was going to work on. And there was a lot of excitement to join that project and form a group around her. Other times, there's not as clear direction, but a common theme. So we have affordable housing group this year and sustainable agriculture. And that's a process within the group to figure out where they'd like to focus. And like I said, a lot of the goal of the project is really to ensure that the process comes before the outcome. And so the outcome can look very different and the process can manifest in very different ways. So that's kind of the thought process behind it. And if Stephanie or Sierra, you want to flesh out any more to Stephen's question about how the projects kind of come about, that'd be great.
Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I was one of those people who definitely had a passion, but didn't know like what exactly I wanted to do for my project. I don't think I really had an idea of what I was going to do until December of 2019. And like Kerry said, it's an emergent process. So it was more of like, oh, here's an opportunity to do something. And I'm going to take this opportunity and kind of run with it and explore it and see what I can do. So it was, at least in my experience, it was very emergent. And I focused more on like mobilizing and planning and organizing rather than like reaching like a clear objective. And I know that some folks in our program, like Kerry said, they had an objective. They're like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to work toward. So I think that that's something that's really cool about the projects, is that you can come from different, places, like, or be in a different place, be in a different space, have different passions, and kind of explore. I think that that's really what's great about the flexibility of the program, is that you're just able to explore. And if you want to learn more about something or dig deeper into something, you can, and that could be your project. So which was kind of my experience. Yeah, Sierra, I don't know if you want to add anything.
No, totally. Just to uplift that, the focus of the project is so much less any sort of solution building than it is on question asking and really deep listening to what your community is asking for. What are the problems that are surfacing? And not just the problems you can see, maybe you have to do a little bit of further digging. Definitely for me, that was the case. And I have to echo Stephanie, I had no idea what I was doing, really, it felt like, until like maybe January. But then when I did, it was like, oh my gosh, this is such a puzzle piece that clicks. Like, of course, this is what I am interested in learning more about. And it really does take just asking questions and listening to what the answers are. So I walked into this kind of thinking like, oh, well, I know that there's a problem with X. I'm going to look at how to solve that. Maybe you don't know that there's a problem with X, but maybe there's a real problem with Y that you do have some tools to help co-create a solution with. So I think that's the really exciting thing about this project, and the unique thing, because there's plenty of other class projects where it's like, oh, present this class paper. What's your essay on? And it's not like that at all, which is a lot more exciting.
So that's okay. I get your point.
You can write an essay if you want. You can do whatever you like. In addition to deep listening. But yeah, it's super cool. I think that's what I really have enjoyed about this. It definitely gives you the leeway to really explore what you're interested in.
Cool.
I think Sierra and Stephanie, you hit that on the head. We have a quote on the website page that we don't believe it's about having the answers, but asking the right questions and listening genuinely to what emerges. And that's a massive leadership skill in organizing across all communities, is you can change the world with a really good question. And so that also weaves into permaculture and observe before acting. So that's definitely an overlap there too. So that's a great question. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions?
Can you talk just a little bit about the application process and how that works and what's involved in that? Yeah, absolutely. So the application is online, and you can easily download it. We have 2 deadlines. We have an early bird deadline of May 10th and a final deadline of June 15th. So if you applied by May 10th, you get 10% off the tuition costs. We have a sliding scale tuition based on if your organization is sending you or if you're paying for yourself. We also have discounted registrations available for Black, Indigenous, and communities of color applicants. And I work personally with every applicant who would like to take advantage of that discount. And I'm more than happy to do that and work with anybody to make sure that price is not a barrier to joining. And the application process
after the application is submitted, we do interviews with past fellows. So who knows, maybe Stephanie or Sierra will be interviewing you, or somebody from previous classes too. And that's a half-hour interview for you to get to know a little bit more about the program and for us to get to know more about you. And after that, we'll let you know if you've been accepted in mid-July. We are recognizing we may need to be adaptable with the application process this year. We've pushed the deadline out 15 days, but we also are hearing back from a number of agency heads who really want to send their staff that their budget cycle is June 30th, so they don't know if they'll have budget until July 1st. So we're recognizing that that might impact some of our agency partners' timeline. So if needed, we'll do a little bit of a rolling version of the interview process. But at the highest level, it's a paper application followed by a 30-minute interview. Generally, it's in person. This year, it will likely be via Zoom. And then we'll let you know in July. And then we start in September with the orientation the last week of August. Does that answer your question?
That's great. Thank you.
Cool. Great. Hey, Alexis.
Hi. Thank you. I just have a question. I don't live in Sonoma County. I'm in Marin, so close. But I was just wondering about if you know, how many folks from, how place-based is it, I guess is my question. Especially from the project perspective, and you know, is it really Sonoma County centered, or is it other people coming from a little north, a little south, a little east? Yeah,
so this year we had folks from Marin, San Francisco, Oakland, and Napa. So about 20% of our class was actually from out of county. So we have no rules around from where you are applying from and coming to the program, but it is place-based in the sense that classes are in Sonoma County. The one thing is the geographic distribution makes it an extra thing to work out with your project group as you choose a location of where you want to focus your project. But like you heard with Stephanie and Sierra, there's also the opportunity to do something similar, similar themes, but maybe applied differently if you are coming with a clear project in mind that you'd like to work on. We do ask in the application now if you do have a specific project in mind or not. Again, there's no right answer on that. Both are totally wonderful. It just helps us get a sense of the class composition and what types of issues are of interest to people applying. So we don't want a class of 25 people with very strong needs in very different areas, and then everybody has to work by themselves, because there's a lot of benefit in figuring out how to work together. So definitely open to that. And I see also a question, I'm from Sonoma, but live in Portland, Oregon right now. Is there any adaptability at this distance? That is awesome. Thanks for joining us. That's a great question. And right this moment, I would say we will be holding true to the being in person part of the class as it's foundationally designed. But we are also looking at potentially expanding our programming to offer an online version of it, because we are getting more interest at the national level. But what that'll look like in relationship to the current class, I'm not sure, because right now it is place-based and needing to be in person. You can come from wherever, but being there in person is important. Because I'm assuming eventually we'll be able to meet in person, and that is the goal. So if you're interested in something with a more distant option, let's definitely stay in touch, because we are actually looking at developing that online version of the curriculum right now. Does that help answer your question? Awesome. Thanks for joining us all the way from Portland.
Yeah, I have a question. What does like the time commitment look like? Not so much as like how much effort you put outside of, meeting in person, and how much meetings are there, and when do they usually happen?
Yeah, so we meet once a month, the first Friday of the month, except for January, it's the second Friday. And we meet for a full day from 9 to 5 with social hour afterwards till 6:30 or so, which is definitely encouraged. And we do have readings and homework for each class that help give a foundation for the topic of that month. Stephanie and Sarah can let me know how long those take, but it's a couple hours. It's not a huge book. It's usually 5 or 6 articles or so from the lenses of all 3 pillars. And then your project work, in best case scenario, you're meeting in person once a month or virtually for a couple hours to move that forward. So we estimate 5 to 10 hours a month outside of the class time. And that will ebb and flow based on how much you're putting into the project, but there won't be too much more reading than that. I don't know, Stephanie or Sarah, if you want to correct me on that as actually doing what we put out there.
Oh, I just wanted to say the homework is awesome. Like, it's the kind of homework where you read the article and you're like, oh my God, everyone needs to know this. And then I keep sending them to like every single person on in my friends list. And they're probably like, Sierra, stop sending us cool stuff at this point, but oh well. And sometimes there's like videos and sometimes there's like worksheets. It's honestly super fun. And you get to learn a lot of cool stuff. So it's awesome.
Yeah, I would definitely echo that. Like, I've enjoyed a lot of the readings, and the readings I assume also vary from class to class depending on who the presenters are, and like what topic is relevant. I think that it's definitely not it's not overwhelming, and it's not too much. I would find myself kind of doing them the day before. I don't know how many people were in the same boat, but even then, kind of procrastinating and leaving it till the last minute, it wasn't too bad. And actually, I was able to kind of have that fresh in my mind for the next day, and I kind of enjoyed doing it that way. And the homework or the handouts, some of them were interactive, which was really nice. It's not just reading, it's really doing some reflective work on yourself. So it's very much worth doing it and taking the time, but it really doesn't take too much. And then as far as the projects go, I think that also varies. In my experience, my project was kind of woven into my work, so I was kind of doing this while I was at work, and it was part of my job. So I found myself spending a significant amount of time on my project, but that was me, and I know that it's different for everyone, so it kind of just depends.
Oh, thank you for all the answers. Thank you.
Awesome, good question. Always good to have good expectations set. Any other questions? We've got 4 more minutes.
I'm just wondering kind of how selective the program is, and I was sort of reading through the application and saying, you're looking for committed change makers, and I'm kind of like, does my CV show that or what? Like, I've been working for private sector all this time and exploring, but not sure if I qualify as a committed change maker at this point, but I'm definitely excited and wanting to get activated with the knowledge I do have, and just wondering, how selective is the process? And a lot of great people on the list of previous people, and at a loss for words, but.
Yeah, I think Sierra's testimonial beautifully demonstrates our approach. CVs are really not what we use to to make this decision. It's the passion and soul that comes out of your writing, really, more than anything else. I believe anybody who wants to be a change maker is going to be a change maker, and probably already is, just might not see it in themselves yet. So I wouldn't worry about that at all. If you're down to do the work, then let's get to it. But observe and listen first, of course. So yeah, I would definitely encourage you to apply.
Okay, thank you.
And Damien, I saw your hand as well.
Yeah, I was wondering if any of the three of you can speak a little bit to the economy piece. So in sustainability, we talk about the environment, equity issues in the economy, and I'm just wondering how the economy piece gets woven into the program.
Yeah, I will take a first pass at this. I also will acknowledge that we're just about to be at 8, so this will probably take us over 8. If you need to drop off, then feel free. I'm happy to stay a few more minutes to complete this answer, but if you do have to drop off, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you spending your time, and look forward to seeing your application. So the economy piece is woven in through our Just Transition framework, and Movement Generation coming up to introduce that. That framework helps us look at the world through the lenses of relationship between the parts of resource use, labor use, culture and mindset, government, and the purpose of the system. And those are kind of the 5 elements of the economy, which we break down that language of eco equals home. So economy is actually management of home. So we're all economists, and reclaiming the power of being economists, because we've outsourced it to experts, and we've not had that great a result as that. So we look at economy through those lenses of people and planet. We look at it from a perspective of how do we manage success and how do we measure well-being differently. Our current measurement of GDP as the single measurement of success is incredibly limiting and harmful. So Oscar Chavez comes in to speak about social progress indicators and a more holistic approach to measuring success that's not purely economic driven. We also have a leadership fellow, Aaron Axelrod, who does regenerative business consulting across the nation, come to speak to our class about examples of businesses that are regenerating people and planet. We deeply believe business is a part of the solution and not the enemy, and it needs to be woven into how we regenerate our world. And so she brings examples of what's possible in that space that are really incredible ways to run a business that are not profit driven, but still successful and regenerate people and planet. So it's really woven in through all the different topics, but that original framework is how we first look at it. And I don't know, Stephanie or Sarah, if you want to add any more to that.
I think you said it all. I think the most important thing for me was reframing what economy means, especially in this framework. And it actually has transformed the way that I'm looking at my movement work, the way that I interact with my community. So yes, it's very much tied in with everything you talk about, but just maybe not in the way that you ever talked about it in economy class in high school.
Yeah, and one of the books we recommend is, we don't assign books as homework yet. That might change, never say never. Highly recommend White Fragility for all white participants looking to apply. Fabulous book. But also Donut Economics is a book that we bring to the class. We have a lending library, so that's one of the books that folks can borrow which is a really exciting new way to approach economics that Amsterdam is actually using to frame their COVID recovery. And I also just put the Movement Generation Just Transition link into the chat. So if you want to look at their zine, you can get a sense of what we've been referring to. All right.
Great.
Good. Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining. And if you have other questions that come up, feel free to reach out to me. And thank you, Stephanie and Sierra, for amazing testimonials and jumping in with questions, and Connor for technical support. Definitely encourage you to apply. Like I said, May 10th, this Sunday, is the first deadline. So feel free to download that application and send it in.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate it. And
thank you, Carrie. Appreciate it.
thank you. Have a good rest of your evening.
Good night, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.